job. It's thankless, it doesn't get the acclaim, but it's another crucial part of how we make this city work and how we protect people. Our correction officers have to show a lot of agility, a lot of creativity in doing the work they do, because remember, it's not just the work of public safety, it is the work of redemption. The entire concept, that's why we call it Department of Correction, is to help people come back from their mistakes, never see the inside of a jail cell again. And our correction officers do amazing work to achieve that kind of goal every single day. So to everyone at the Department of Corrections, our correction officers, all the employees of the Department of Corrections, appreciate what you do. It is not easy in normal times. It's been a lot harder during this pandemic. It's been a tough, tough time for all of you, I know. But you keep showing up and you keep making sure everyone is safe, and you keep doing that work of redemption. And I want to thank you, and I ask all New Yorkers, if you know anyone in your life who works for the Department of Correction, please give them a special thank you this week, because they do so much for all of us. We don't get to see it that often, but it's something we depend on a lot. Please give them a real heartfelt thanks. Okay. Now, time for the daily indicators. And again, I'm looking forward to us working together, continuing that strong discipline approach you've all engaged in to get these numbers to go down together steadily. Today, we have progress. It's not perfect progress, but it's damn close. So this is a good day. I want to see even better days, and then I want us to string them together, because that's our pathway to opening up, reducing restrictions, and taking the steps towards the restart. So let's go over the indicators. Number one, daily number of people admitted to hospitals for suspected COVID-19. That is down from 109 to 79. Isn't that good to hear? Only 79 people. Now, for those 79 people, they are dealing with real challenges. So I never want to belittle even if a single person has to go into the hospital for COVID-19. But thank God, compared to where we were, only 79 people as of the latest measure. The daily number of people in ICUs across our public hospital system for suspected COVID-19, that has gone down as well from 599 to 567. Again, still 567, that's a lot of people. But it has gone down noticeably, and that's great. Now, one thing went in the wrong direction, but I will say, thankfully, only by 1%. So, you know, it's still a good day. Percentage of people tested positive for COVID-19 citywide, up 15% to 16%. Overall, right direction. Let's dig in and go farther. Let me offer a few words in Spanish. Este virus nos hace vivir con duda. Y los neoyorquinos merecen saber lo que está pasando. Vamos a estar más informados con cada examen que hacemos. Y vamos a hacer muchísimos más exámenes gratis en las semanas que vienen. Cada examen nos va a ayudar en esta batalla y le va a dar a cada neoyorquino la información y seguridad que merece. Okay, with that, we will turn to our colleagues in the media, and please let me know the name and the outlet of each journalist.
We'll now begin our Q&A. As a reminder, we also have Dr. Barbeau, Dr. Katz, and Senior Advisor Jay Varma on the line. First question today goes to Andrew Siff from WNBC.
Hi, Mayor. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well.
Yes, good morning, Andrew. How you doing?
Hanging in there. My question is about the testing. You have set out benchmarks for testing before and then acknowledged that those benchmarks, despite the best intentions, were not met. So I'm wondering, first of all, what assurances can you give New Yorkers that that 140,000 number for first responders and 140,000 number for everyday New Yorkers will actually be met? And then assuming you do hit those numbers, what is that information supposed to tell us?
So the 140,000 that the city of New York will do with bioreference labs, I'm totally confident that that will get done on the schedule we've laid out, and the details will be filled in the next few days. The 140,000 that we have been putting together with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Centers for Disease Control, I feel good about it because all the steps have now come together and the mechanical process has been agreed to, and I expect that testing to start next week. It still involves the federal government. I think, Andrew, you would agree. It's been an interesting ride dealing with the federal government during this crisis. But on this one, things have been moving very steadily in the right direction, and we've gotten confident answers from the federal government about the ability to have this up and running for next week and to hit those numbers. So the 240,000 pools I feel good about. That will get us 280,000 of the antibody tests right there, in addition to all the other testing that will be going on. Again, it is a part of the puzzle. If we had, Andrew, if we had the perfect world, it would be totally available universal PCR testing, diagnostic testing. If we had the perfect world, that's what would tell us what we need to know when we need to know it. That's what we should have had in the beginning of this crisis, or as close to it as possible. Federal government has always struggled on the PCR testing. I don't understand it. It is the center of the fight. I first called for the help from the federal government on PCR testing on January 24th. I know others around the country did as well. And the reality of the testing is the test kits. We know what it takes to make a test kit. Now we have an even easier way with the self-swab testing. We know what it takes to analyze a test in a lab. These are knowable things. These are things that can be acted on by the federal government. This is another area where the president has hesitated to use the Defense Production Act to the fullest. I don't understand why for the life of me. Our country was not prepared for this, and we don't make the things we need in the United States of America, and this is absolutely a negative result of globalization. A real indictment of all the decisions made over the decades to ship manufacturing out in the United States, and it has to be reversed bluntly. And we're leading the way right here in the city by creating our own capacity in as many areas as we can to produce our own things. But still the federal government isn't getting it right on the PCR testing, and they still need to, and they still need to use the Defense Production Act and to get us what we need. But until that day, Andrew, we will do as much of the diagnostic testing as we can, and we will do as much of the antibody testing as we can, because both tell us something and both are usable in our test and trace strategy and in our pathway to a restart.
The next is Shant from the Daily News.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to follow up about homelessness on the subways. Colleagues of mine who've been on the ground have found a number of homeless people refusing to go to shelters out of fears of contracting the virus there, and instead sort of setting up on buses. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on the possibility that the problem is basically relocating from subways to the buses. My second question would just be if the outcomes you've seen from the subway closures are giving you to reconsider your opposition to calls from some homeless advocates who have pressing for the city to provide single hotel rooms to every homeless person. Thank you.
Thank you. Shant, I appreciate the question, but I actually would say that in both instances, the results we're seeing in the first 2 days entirely validate the heavy outreach strategy and the fact that when provided the choice the right way and when there's lots of support there, a lot of homeless people will choose to go into safe havens and shelters. This is something Commissioner Banks has been talking about for years. And again, this crisis and the specific plan with the MTA is putting a point on it. But I remember the first press conference we did in Tompkins Square Park, and we can get to the exact date of that, when we announced Homestat. and how revolutionary it would be to put a huge amount of outreach workers on the task of bringing in homeless folks off the street and just investing whatever it took to gain the trust of homeless folks and disrupt the negative patterns of their lives and give them a better way. And over the last 3 years, that strategy has been proven and proven and proven again, which led to our Journey Home strategy we announced in December to end permanent street homelessness. This new approach is striking to me because it is creating the kind of positive disruption that's causing homeless folks to make that decision to come in. So, no, the results are speaking for themselves. People are going to safe havens and shelter. Again, if there's ever a specific situation where our outreach teams believe a hotel is a better option, that's there for them. But we want to help people, Shant. Remember, this is not like someone just needs a roof over their head. These are folks who, for whatever reason, their lives ended up bringing them down to the street on a permanent basis, many of whom have either a serious mental health issue or a substance abuse issue or both. You can't just take someone like that, put them into a hotel with no support and call it a day. That takes intensive support, which is what safe havens do in particular. So no, I would focus on the strategy we have now. And as for the homeless folks potentially going on the buses, that's something we have to disrupt as well. We have to help people to the better options. The buses, the subways are for essential workers. This is an emergency. That's what they're for. People who need help should get help. So I am certain we can work with the MTA to address that issue and keep maximizing the offer of help. And as we do, we see more and more people taking it. That's a very good sign.
Next is Marsha from CBS.
Mr. Mayor, how are you doing today?
Good, Marsha. How are you?
Let me say I like the haircut. I hope you didn't do it yourself. Anyway, moving on. This is a social distancing question. Yesterday, the family of the 15-year-old involved in that incident in the 7-5 in the Bronx said the police social distancing arrests are the new stop and frisk. I wonder how you feel about that, but also what are you going to do about this? What will the new guidelines be for the NYPD? Are you going to tell them, just not to issue summonses and make arrests, just to give out masks and sanitizers and advice and messaging?
Well, thank you, Marsha. First of all, I want to affirm that thank God I didn't give myself a haircut, or the people in New York City would not be able to look at me as I give them these updates. So I'm happy you like it, though. That's a good sign. No, this is, look, I predicted someone would try to make this parallel, and there is no parallel. I feel bad for any family that is suffering in any way. And there was one particular incident on the Lower East Side that was just patently unacceptable. I said it, Commissioner Shea said it, the officer's been modified, bears no resemblance to what policing is supposed to be in this city and has nothing to do with the coronavirus. It's just inappropriate activity by an officer. Remember, the vast majority of officers do their job, do it well, do it respectfully. The vast majority of interactions between our police and our community go well, and you never hear about them. So the number of times that people are talking about a video that's troubling is still a very, very rare occasion. It doesn't mean we don't have more work to do. A number of leaders of communities of color have said to me they are concerned and they want to make sure that we are actually continuing doing the work of leaving the past behind, because the past was absolutely unacceptable in the way communities of color were policed. But we have made a huge amount of progress over these years, and we're going to continue to. What happened with stop and frisk was a systematic, oppressive, unconstitutional strategy that created a new problem much bigger than anything it purported to solve. This is the farthest thing from that. This is addressing a pandemic. They're addressing the fact that lives are in danger all the time. By definition, our police department needs to be a part of that because safety is what they do. Now, the vast majority of interactions around this pandemic are officers reminding people what they do, asking them to change their behavior. People, they respond. I've had this conversation with Commissioner Shea and Chief Monahan. The vast majority of New Yorkers, when an officer, not only a police officer, any of our enforcement officers says, hey, I need you to create more space. Hey, I need you to put that face covering on, people do it. Some incidents have occurred that have nothing to do with social distancing, and we should not forget that. There's entirely different activity going on. Police still have to fight crime, and they still have to address conditions in neighborhoods when neighbors call in with a complaint. But no, we're going to make the protocols clearer and clearer. But it's that hierarchy I've talked about several times. The thing we're going to be particularly intolerant of is larger gatherings. Those are just downright dangerous. When people are too close together, we're going to help make sure that they create more space. We're going to help make sure people wear face coverings, very consistent with what our police do to protect safety in general. But we're going to keep refining the protocol to make it clearer for everyone involved. It's a whole new world we're dealing with. We never had to deal with this in the past. This is a new world. It'll take time to get it better and make more sense of it, but I'm confident that we'll get it done.
Next is Julia from the Post.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and everyone else on the call. Two questions for you on the DOE. One on the fact that the DOE still hasn't presented its final middle and high school admissions plan. Don't you think that parents and students deserve to know how seventh graders are going to be applying for high school next year? And then I'm looking for you to respond to remarks by Chancellor Carranza at a panel discussion recently. He questioned the ethics of screened schools and told fellow administrators not to, quote, waste a good crisis in pursuit of a change.
So I don't know the specific panel discussion you're talking about. So I can't respond to comments I haven't seen the context. We've been clear in this administration that we are reevaluating the admissions process across the board, and we're asking important questions about what is fair and equitable going forward. Many things are going to be reevaluated as a result of this crisis. It's a whole concept I've been putting forward that we are not just going to bring New York City back with the status quo that was there before, but we're going to try and make a series of changes that favor equity and fairness. We were already in the process of doing that when it came to school admissions. So certainly the screen schools are being reevaluated, and we'll have more to say on that in the future. On high school admissions, look, everything's been disrupted here on a just seismic level. Of course, with each passing day, we're able to do more and more to clarify to students and parents how things are going to go in the future. So admissions certainly will be addressed, and it'll be addressed soon. But I want to remind everyone that we've had to remake the entire school system in the last few weeks to create online education on a massive scale for the first time. And the focus in recent weeks has been making sure that was up and running fully and getting kids the technology they needed. And I remind everyone and anyone, if there still is a child who doesn't have that free iPad who's a public school student, call 311, we'll get it to them right away. And also for children with disabilities in our non-public schools, religious and independent and private schools, we will get them a free iPad as well. And again, any family can call 311. But our focus has been getting the education system up and running this new approach, making sure we're focused on high school seniors, because that's the most sensitive piece of this equation, helping everyone who can graduate to graduate, and starting to build a pathway to the summer and then next year. But as we're able, we're filling in more of the blanks, and we'll certainly have a lot more to say on admissions soon.
Next is Juliet from 1010 Wins.
Oh, hi, good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Juliet. Are you going to present me with another problem to solve today?
No, maybe tomorrow.
Okay, good. Take one day off once in a while, okay?
But listen, no, thank you for the acknowledgement on the encampments. Actually, we're hearing about more locations, so I'll keep you posted. But my questions today are as follows. What options are you reviewing to avoid furloughs and layoffs? There is a lot of concern about that from working New Yorkers. And the other question is, we had Yankee President Randy Levine on 1010 Wins talking about plans for the possible resumption of baseball. He's hopeful there could be some kind of opening at Yankee Stadium. Now, I know you're a Boston fan, but given that baseball could be a very good thing for the city, do you think you'd find your way there for a first pitch?
Yeah, you know, Juliet, I am a huge baseball fan. And I'm getting to the point now, you know, I just saw that ESPN is going to start broadcasting South Korean baseball. And I'm like, I need baseball. I think a lot of us need baseball. I'll watch it anywhere, any country, anyhow. But look, I would love nothing more than to see baseball come back to New York City. And I would happily go to Yankee Stadium and be part of that first game. It would be a joy, and the same with Citi Field for the Mets. I don't think that's coming soon. I think we have to be honest about it. I think it would be, the day that baseball comes back to New York City is going to be an extraordinarily positive moment. And I will celebrate with Yankee fans and Met fans alike. But I think we need to set our sights in a realistic place. As we think about restarting, and we see this from the good examples around the world and the bad examples, and the good examples around the country and the bad examples. You start in smart, purposeful ways. You start where you can do the maximum social distancing. You gotta be careful. The more people you put in one place, the greater the danger until you really knock down this disease. So there's a kind of chicken and egg here, Juliet. You want the perfect time to really reopen big events is always when the disease has really been beaten back to, you know, next to nothing. So, and the danger with big gatherings especially is that could be one of the things that propels the disease back and gives us that boomerang we really don't want. The example of New Orleans and Mardi Gras. You know, big gatherings cause problems. Could you have baseball without fans or with, you know, a limited number of fans? Yeah, there's different things to discuss. But I want to really emphasize, we're not there yet. And I think those bigger gatherings and bigger events are going to be one of the last things that will really fit the equation as we restart. And this one I put in the better safe than sorry category. You know, I want to see baseball come back badly, but I want that the day that baseball comes back, everyone is really confident that it's the right thing to do. So when it comes back, I will unquestionably be there joyously with all other baseball fans, Yankees and Mets alike. Quick point on the encampments. Again, those are not acceptable in New York City. So Juliet, if you find others we want to hear about right away, or anybody watching now, if you see homeless New Yorkers setting up a semi-permanent place to live, we will not allow that. Just call 311. We'll get NYPD and homeless services and sanitation over there to clean it up immediately. We need those reports so we can make sure that nothing like that happens. On the furloughs and layoffs, Juliet, this is the last thing I want to do, literally the last thing I want to do. And the key to avoiding furloughs and layoffs is in the hands of the president and the Congress. So far, conversation I had with Speaker Pelosi on Sunday suggests that the House will present a stimulus that is very respectful of our first responders, very respectful of our healthcare heroes, very respectful of our essential workers, and very respectful of cities and states that will help us fully back on our feet. That's what we need. Senator McConnell has been disdainful of helping out states and cities in need. The president has gone from silent to now he's throwing all sorts of perverse conditions on. He's literally talking now about wanting to give a tax break to the wealthy for capital gains tax as a precondition for helping our first responders and our healthcare heroes. That's unbelievably wrong. It's inappropriate. It's inhuman. It's literally, imagine a rich guy wanting to take care of other rich guys rather than wanting to take care of cops and firefighters and doctors and nurses. It's unbelievable. We're seeing things in this crisis that you can't even believe are coming out of the mouth of the President of the United States. So I would argue that everyone who wants to see that stimulus so we can be made whole, so we can keep our whole workforce intact, needs to raise their voice, whether they're a Democrat or Republican, whoever you are, raise your voice. And our heroes need to raise their voices to remind everyone in Washington of the fact that we need them to be on our payroll serving people. They deserve to be doing the great work they're doing and having the confidence and the security they will do it for years and years to come. But Juliette, if you take $7.4 billion out of any budget, which is exactly what we're dealing with now, and even worse, without a stimulus, we'll lose more money because there won't be a restart. There'll be lost revenue more and more. The state, if they don't get the help, they're going to cut us more and more. This situation goes from bad to worse really quickly. Right now, any government anywhere missing $7.4 billion would have to make a lot of tough choices. But it gets a lot worse if we don't get the stimulus. So it's the last thing I want to see, furloughs and layoffs. But if we don't get the help, we're going to be having to make a lot of really, really tough and painful decisions here in this city.
Next is Henry from Bloomberg.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you doing today?
Good, Henry. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I saw a 1969 Mets-Baltimore game the other night, 2-1, McNally versus Koosman. I highly recommend it. Second game of the World Series. My question has to do with this report in the New York Times today that says that a large number of cases nationally emanated out of New York City. New York City was sort of the source of spreading the virus nationally to an extent that was previously unrecognized. I'm wondering whether you or the health commissioner has any thoughts about this, whether, you know, what does it say, if anything, about federal policy, about city policy, and about the nature of this virus?
Well, Henry, I haven't seen the specific reporting you're referring to, but I can say this much. The fact is that we know this virus came from multiple parts of the world into the United States. So, of course, the question will be what was done and what was not done to stop the introduction into our country. And then the second question has to be what was done or not done to stop the spread once it got here. And that comes back to testing. There's no question in my mind, had the testing been in place that we asked for at the end of January, if it had been in place in February, this entire scenario for the city would have been different and much, much better. So that to me is the story of what happened here. There were choices made or not made that could have profoundly changed the trajectory of this entire disease in the city and in this country. But after that, you know, I think it's clear when something is introduced, you know, at the kind of level it became introduced, of course it was going to spread from one place to another, and now we're dealing with the results of that. The lesson we have to take from this is, you know, if we ever dealt with anything like this in the future, is to be really clear about what would need to be done to keep a disease out of this country, but most especially what would need to be done here to stop it once it got here, with every forceful federal response and local response available. But I would also say, while we're trying to analyze what happened, how about we get the federal response right now? Again, two things the federal government really needed to do in this crisis: testing and support the cities and states. Right now, failing still on the testing and failing to step up to support the cities and states. So we'll look back and we'll have plenty of time to analyze what was. What I'm shocked by, Henry, is the same mistakes are being made right this moment, and this will determine whether this disease continues to spread or not. And I think we need to take every opportunity to stop it dead in its tracks now, and we can only do that with really full federal support. We still don't have it.
The next is Abu from Bangla Patrika.
Hello, Mayor. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much. So I have a question, which is you expressed the frustration and anger day before yesterday about, I think, about the president who is not helping the New York City. What is the alternate plan if you don't get any support from federal government? And then number two, the city is closed, so might be in the future city will be open. What is the plan? How will be the style of, say, about a restaurant, bar, nightclub? I mean, if it's open, then how it will be open? It will be like same like crowded, or it will be a different kind of shape. What would be the new, the style and system?
Great question, Abu. I thank you for that. So I think it's fair to say that restaurants, bars, nightclubs are one of the most sensitive pieces of this equation. We just talked earlier about Yankee Stadium, Citi Field. Those really big gatherings. That's probably the single, most sensitive piece of the equation when you bring a huge number of people together. But the restaurants and bars, nightclubs combine lots of people and usually very limited space. So there's a lot of good ideas around the world now about how you could bring them back properly. I can't give you the exact timing. We're not there yet. We will say much more in the coming days about what we are seeing in terms of the sequencing of each part of our economy and the restart. This is part of why we have our advisory groups helping us now who represent each of the industries of the city, give us real world advice about what they're going through, what they need. But what I can tell you is there's going to be different times for different types of businesses and different conditions for each type of business. And it's going to be steady and careful. So when you think about what we were used to just a few months ago with restaurants and bars and everyone's super close together and it's part of the energy we love about this city, that's not happening right away, to say the least. Restaurants and bars, we've got to help them back. But figuring out when that can begin is something we have not finalized, but we'll say as soon as possible. And then inevitably with some initial restrictions. So different ideas are out there about capacity within a restaurant and bar, how many people could be allowed in, different ideas about restaurants compared to bars or nightclubs. That's a whole discussion. They may not be treated equally because of different realities. Outdoors is an interesting and promising possibility to rely on more of the service being outdoors. You still need precautions, but that's an interesting option we're looking at. Face coverings, gloves, a number of specifics to make the experience safe. Now, we have to see that that can be done in a workable manner, and also for each business, they have to decide if that's a set of conditions they want to reopen with or whether they want to just keep focusing on takeout and delivery. But we will put together a plan that gets very specific about the when and the how and the conditions and the precautions, and that's going to grow with time. But don't expect anytime soon the kind of crowded bar or restaurant that we knew before. It will be here one day, but it will not be soon. On the question of what we would do with no stimulus, it's just tragic, horrible math. I want people to think about $7.4 billion, what a staggering number that is. And, a lot of people look at the city budget like, oh, you could do this, you could do that. $7.4 billion means a whole huge swath of things have to be cut. And again, if there is not a stimulus, and if it's not a very generous stimulus, the situation gets worse because a lack of stimulus hurts restart and recovery. Then there's less revenue. So the problem we have now, the $7.4 billion, becomes a much bigger problem. If the state isn't made whole, they've already cut us $800 million on top of the $7.4 billion. So really right now the hit we've taken is 7.4 plus 800, which is 8.2 billion. There would inevitably be really substantial additional state cuts. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and then we have to think about all sorts of things just to balance a budget. By law, we must balance our budget. So it is a very tough picture, and it should motivate everyone to fight every day to get that stimulus and to put pressure on the president and Senator McConnell. Look, if the president of the United States had said, we got to do stimulus 4, we got to make the cities and states whole, we got to replace their lost revenue. If he said those 3 sentences, it would have been done already. And we would be much more strongly back on the road to recovery. This is just a sick game that the president will not open his mouth and say, we will make the cities and states whole. That's all he has to do, and the Senate will follow. But he's playing politics. So everyone who cares needs to raise their voice. And the more the voices come from a whole range of our society, obviously Republicans and Democrats and people from every walk of life and every industry, the faster we will get this done.
Next is Gloria from New York 1.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor, I want to talk about this antibody testing effort you're announcing. Specifically with so much debate and discussion going on around how these antibody tests are being done and what the results actually show, the problem of positives and some of these tests not being properly vetted by the FDA. So what is the guidance? That's my first question. That the city is using? What is the test, to be specific? And my second question is about homeless engagements last night. Out of 361, 218 accepted help. Is the city recording what happened to those other people?
So that's a really good question, Gloria, and we'll have Commissioner Banks follow up with you. So again, on the 218, so 218 out of 361 is a stunning figure to begin with, because I've been watching this situation over the last 3 years with the Homestead Initiative, and again, well over 2,000 people have come in and stayed in. And remember that base we work from, this is, again, as Commissioner Banks talked about yesterday, this is not everyone who's ever been out on a street panhandling, or someone who's homeless very temporarily, or someone who lives in a shelter. We're talking about the essence, the most painful, tough part of the problem is permanent street homelessness. 3,500 to 4,000 people at any given moment. A horrible tragedy we have to fight. Against that backdrop, well over 2,000 people in the last 3 years have come in, stayed in, never gone back to the street. So 2,000 over 3 years is actually pretty amazing compared to the universe we're dealing with and compared to the history of the city, where there was never anything like that. They never even got close in previous years to bringing in that many people. This is the single most intensive effort to reduce street homelessness in the history of the city. 2,000 plus in 3 years. I'm telling you, you heard yesterday's figures. Last night, 218 in one night. Now, that doesn't mean everyone will stay in permanently, of course. But if you had 196 accepted shelter and 22 went to the hospital, that's an amazing start. So I want to emphasize just how promising that is. And the more we do that, the more people who decide to stick with it, you're going to see that street population shrink. On those who did not accept help, we keep coming back. Remember, think of how individualized the approach is. God forbid you or I were street homeless. The outreach workers would know us by name in the vast majority of cases. And they'd be continuing to work with us, coming back, time after time, dozens of times, hundreds of times even, trying to win our trust, trying to get us to come in, figure out what we need to come in. So Commissioner Banks will fill in the blank for you, but I would pretty much guarantee that some of those people last night who weren't willing to come in were known to the Department of Homeless Services, and they're going to keep engaging them and just keep coming back because the persistence is working. That's what was the missing link in previous strategies. The persistence works here. On the antibody test, we will give you all the specifics of which test we're using. As I said, we're working with bioreference labs on the city test. The federal initiative with the CDC and HHS will be done with Quest Diagnostics. So two really leading, well-respected testing entities. We will get you exactly which test each is using. And with it will, of course, be guidance for everyone about what the test tells you, what it doesn't tell you. We've been explicit about this. The test doesn't tell you everything. It tells you something, and it's not a perfect measure. It does not mean you don't have to keep practicing social distancing and using PPEs depending on your profession. But it gives you some confidence, some knowledge, and it helps in other ways as in terms of our bigger fight against the coronavirus. So we'll give that information to everyone who gets tested, and we'll give them their own results and make clear to people what kind of follow-up makes sense depending on their results. But we want to be very transparent about what the test is, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and what the results are we're getting as we go along.
Next is Mark Morales at CNN.
Hey everyone, how you doing today?
Good, Mark, how are you?
Good. I wanted to follow up on the social distancing questions and specifically about what was discussed yesterday. I know we were talking about releasing data as far as summonses go for the month of April, and I wanted to know, when is that going to happen? When is the city going to be releasing the summons data related to social distancing for the month of April? And if you've seen the data, what does that show you?
So I have not seen it. I expect to see it very shortly. It will be released for sure. I want to remind everyone, thank you, I've been given the update, it will be released tomorrow. That is certainly shortly. So I'll see it today, it'll be released tomorrow. Here's what we know. We know there's 8.6 million people. We know we've been at this crisis about 2 months. And we know that in very few instances has there been a need to give summonses. That's the good news. There certainly have been some times we had to give summonses when they were needed, they were needed. But we will give you that breakout. It's still such a small number that I think it tells us something, but it doesn't tell us anything nearly as important as the fact that there has been intensive effort by the NYPD and other agencies to educate and to enforce, and now also more and more to give out the face coverings. And the vast majority of that has worked, and the reason we know it's worked is because we can see it in our daily indicators. We can see how much progress has been made with the social distancing. We can see it with our own eyes, the way the vast majority of New Yorkers are applying social distancing and putting on the face coverings. So vast majority of cases, this is working. But we will give you that data tomorrow. It'll show the facts as they are, but it'll also be against a pretty small sample size because summons has not been something we've had to do too much, but we won't hesitate to do it when we need to.
Next is Yoav from the city.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask you about the subway sweeps. Do you have a sense for what percentage of the homeless people at the end of those train lines are being engaged, and what type? It's kind of a similar to Gloria's question about what type of accounting is it for what happens to them. But you also mentioned that it sounded like offering a hotel room was one of the options that they can be given in certain cases. Can you just say in which cases, and have any of the homeless people actually moved to hotel rooms from the subway?
So again, I'll have Commissioner Banks give you more detail, but I can give you just an overview. Let me ask from Freddie Goldstein that just if we have yesterday's numbers too on number engaged, yeah, that'd be helpful. On your first question, Yoav, so again, I've said it, I'll say it again, 361 were engaged last night by our homeless outreach teams in NYPD. 218 of the 361 accepted help. 196 went to shelter, 22 went to the hospital. So when we say accepted help, it means that they actually left the scene with our teams and were taken someplace else where they could get help. So a huge percentage. The remainder did not accept help, but again, we know a lot of them, and we'll keep working on them. And I need people to understand that these are human beings. Each one is different. You know, you don't win every time, but you keep at it, you do get a lot of people to move. And I think we're seeing more and more in this crisis, more and more street homeless people are choosing to accept help. And I think it's in some ways related to all the changes that are happening and all the disruption of our normal life pattern. It's actually opening up a lot of homeless people to the possibility of accepting help, and that's a good thing. To compare to the night before, 252 were engaged and 139 accepted help. So high levels of engagement both nights, and in both cases, a majority accepted help. And that's a very striking result. Again, there seems to be, in my humble opinion, an over-focus on the hotels. The hotels seem like in many of our questions here, I think the hotels are being put on a pedestal that's just not the reality. And so let's try and get it clearer here. Hotels work for some things, they don't work for everything. When it comes to a homeless person who needs help right now, this is different than if someone's in a shelter setting. Let's just try and get this tight here. If someone's in a shelter setting, congregate shelter we've talked about, and there's a need for more social distancing, that's a case where we are using hotels. We've been doing it more and more to make sure there's enough space. And we choose according to the person and what they need. And some people do better because they can handle a hotel situation, and other people can't so easily handle a hotel situation. Many are folks who need a lot of support. And being in a shelter with fewer people can be the better and healthier option, and that's what's worked on every single day. The folks who are street homeless and have been spending a lot of time either on street or subway or both are in many cases dealing with really extreme problems. And the goal is not to just take them and leave them alone somewhere, but the goal is to get them the intensive help they need. That's the entire concept of the safe haven, and that's a concept that has been proven now for 3 years to work. Think about, Yoav, someone who is street homeless with a very high interconnection to serious mental health issues and or substance misuse. They need a safe place. They need a lot of support. They need a lot of medical care. They need mental health services and or substance misuse services. It's not snap your fingers, instant gratification. They were living in a subway or a street and now they're in a building and they're fine and they're going back to normal life. It is a process. It takes time and energy, but we've seen a lot of success. So you don't just take someone and drop them someplace. You take someone someplace where they can get the intensive help they need as part of their rehabilitation, as part of getting them to a better place. That's the whole reality. As I said, if there's an instance where a hotel for any particular reason makes more sense, of course that option exists. But when you're talking about people coming off of the streets, I don't think that's the typical option. The typical option is safe haven or shelter. And again, Commissioner Banks will get you more later on.
Next is Jeff Mays from the New York Times.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor. Just two questions. Some of the city's Black elected officials, police reform groups, even some of the police unions are warning that the social distancing enforcement is dangerous, untenable, and it's only a matter of time before some sort of tragedy occurs. Are you concerned about one of these incidents becoming something tragic? And then secondly, Commissioner Shea, I believe, suggested that when the weather gets warm, there may be a plan to limit the number of people that can go into parks. Is that something that you are working on or have discussed with the commissioner or plan to put into place?
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, on the second piece, yes. Commissioner and I have had extensive conversations with members of both our teams and other agencies as well. And there are certain parks where just the configuration of the park lends itself to overcrowding, and we're working on strategies right now to address that. And we'll have more to say on that tomorrow. But there's no question that in a kind of toolbox of approaches that we could use, to help make sure that social distancing works. If we've got some parks that are just the way they're set up is it's just too easy to have crowding, we can't let that happen, and we have to limit the number of people going in. And we'll talk about how we're going to do that. And it's not that many places, honestly, but wherever that is the case, we're going to work with a protocol to do that. Well, it'll take some experimentation. It'll take some effort to make sure it works, but I think it's a good direction. On the first part of your question, look, this is our job to avoid these tragedies. And the reason that I do this work, and I know it's true for Commissioner Shea and so many people here, is to fundamentally change things. We have fundamentally changed policing in New York City. There's more change that has to be made. But before we came here, policing was based on a very punitive approach, heavy reliance on stop and frisk, heavy reliance on arrest. There was not value put on deepening relationships between police and community. There was not a value put on retraining. And we've been doing all these things, and we're going to do a lot more. We've retrained the entire police force in de-escalation. We obviously have put body cameras on every patrol officer. The entire strategy now is neighborhood policing and building relationships with communities. We have de-emphasized arrest to a huge degree, let alone getting rid of the vast, vast majority of stop and frisk. Nothing has changed in this crisis. The whole mission is to protect people's lives and avoid the tragedies of the past. We have a new threat that we have to put front and center, and this is where I part company from the PBA and some of the activists as well simultaneously, and I'm very comfortable parting company from both with all due respect to them. The way you keep people safe in New York City is to use the finest police force in the world to protect people. That is a fundamental truth. And when confronted with the biggest crisis we've ever known, we're not going to sideline the NYPD. We're going to use the NYPD to the fullest, but with smart protocols, smart training, figuring out what works and doesn't work. And I am not making my decisions based on a very few interactions that were handled poorly or went bad. I'm making my decisions based on the millions of interactions that are going right. And the fact that clearly this city is moving in the right direction on social distancing and shelter in place, and it's making us safer, and it's saving lives. We're here to save lives. I'm not going to sacrifice saving lives because people are fearful of something that loomed in the past. I want to protect people in every way, but it begins with protecting them from the clear and present danger of this disease. So I hear the concerns, I hear the criticisms. There's been some very positive, constructive ideas from, for example, Public Advocate Jumaane Williams or Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams have talked about bringing in a lot of additional elements of the community to help with educating and supporting efforts at social distancing. I think that's a great idea. We'll have more to say on that soon as well. But no, the NYPD has to lead the way in keeping people safe, and fighting this disease is job one, and that's what we're going to do.
We have time for two more today. Next is Christina from Chalkbeat.
Hi, Mayor. Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to know if there are any plans to systematically test teachers to contribute to being able to reopen school, and what role also the subway system will play in reopening schools. Obviously now there are shutdowns, and lots of students and teachers rely on them to get to class.
Very important, I would dare say profound questions, Christina. I appreciate it. On the second one, look, everything's going to interact here. I am a firm believer that we can get to a full reopening of schools in September, but I want to keep giving people a window into my philosophy developed through constantly talking to the experts and looking at the conditions in our city and thinking about how we mix all these factors together the right way. My worldview is it's mission critical to get our schools up and running in September. It's mission critical to get our economy started as soon as we can do it safely and then build it out in a safe, careful manner. All of that is going to require the pieces fitting carefully in each case and each step being proven before we take the next step. So you're absolutely right. It's hard to have that full reopening of schools without the subway system being more available to our students and the people who work in schools. That says to me how important it is to keep tight with our current strategies. If you value the reopening of school in September, then stick with the social distancing, stick with the shelter in place, stick with the strategies that work, put on a face covering, and all the things we're going to do to keep that working is about driving down the disease, and then that handoff, as I said, to an intensive test and trace strategy that keeps driving down the disease more. We do that intensely enough, May, June, July, August. That's the gateway to reopening schools fully. I would also argue that's the gateway to expanding subway service again and doing so many other things. So yeah, there's a deep interconnection, and I think the job is to get those pieces to align through the hard work we're doing now. On the testing of teachers, we have not obviously defined all the pieces yet of what a reopening of schools looks like, but I think a lot of testing will be a part of it by any definition. And the world I'd like to get to is one where there's maximal testing available for school communities to give people confidence that they can come back into the school community and really know what's going on, and that anyone who, for whatever reason, still might need to be isolated is isolated in a timely fashion. So what that looks like, when that can be done, how that can be done, those are blanks we need to fill in. But will testing play an important role in the restart of schools? Absolutely.
Last question for today goes to Erin from Politico.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Couple quick questions about the antibody testing. Have you received new information or assurances as to the reliability of the results of these tests? I know just a couple weeks ago, the health department put out an alert essentially saying not to rely on them. So has anything changed between now and then? And then can you just give some more details of who is eligible? You said people in the neighborhood are prioritized, but how do you define that exactly? And beyond that, is everyone eligible, or do you have to hit other criteria?
Thank you, Erin. So we'll put out the eligibility criteria. Look, we've got a good thing, which is testing, but I don't want to see people start to go too far for testing, especially in a world where we're going to start to make it more and more available in more places. So I want there to be a sense of localness to this. That's why it's so important to have a priority for residents in nearby communities. This is to reach a lot of people. It's also for the research purposes I talked about. And if you're talking about you need to do thousands of people at each test site, you can do that in so many parts of the city in an area within walking distance of the test site even. You could get enough people to reach those goals. So I want it to be very local. People will call and reserve. Preference will be given to the local area. Obviously, there's additional testing and people can get to it from places that are somewhat farther. We're going to allow that, but it's not our preference. Our preference is for it to be as local as possible, just to minimize travel, because we know more and more testing is coming behind it. We're obviously in an intensive ramp up now. On the reliability, I think it's a great question. I think it's really important that we are clear. This test is not the end-all be-all. Said it a bunch of times. We'll say it every single day. There'll be written materials given to people. There'll be reminders given by the healthcare professionals. We are not promising people a rose garden here. We're not saying the antibody test is the last word. It's not, but it tells you something. The most effective tests, and obviously we're working with BioReference and Quest Diagnostics to make sure that we have the tests that we believe are the most fine-tuned, if you will, the most specific to indicating that you've had COVID-19 and you've been exposed to it previously. We will announce exactly what those tests are and give information about the nature of them, but we would only utilize, as the City of New York, we'd only work with partners who agreed to use a test that we have higher confidence in terms of its specificity, identifying the presence of COVID-19 previously in someone's experience. There are some other tests out there that I think are less reliable. We're not going to work with those. So we will be clear about reliability levels. But even with that said, the what we know, what we don't know, what we can know is if you've been exposed to the disease and you came through it, that tells you something. That is helpful. It tells you something about your experience. It tells you something about your resiliency. It's helpful to know. It does not change the fact that you still need to take precautions. We'll keep delineating all those precautions because we don't have the hardest evidence that you couldn't get the disease again. We don't have a lot of evidence that you will get the disease again, or it's likely, but we can't say definitively you won't. So we're going to keep telling people to be careful and safe because of abundance of caution. Certainly, if someone has been exposed to disease, that's important, again, for knowing who could be candidates to provide plasma for that kind of treatment for others. And the research is the research. Having facts about people helps us on a research level to understand disease, as I said, to understand it demographically, by occupation, all sorts of things we need to know. So we'll keep putting all those qualifiers on. And if someone comes to get tested and they're like, oh, wow, you know, if I get a positive, it means I don't need to wear a face covering anymore, or if I work in a hospital, I don't need PPEs, we'll say instantly, no, you still do. Till this is over, you still do. So we'll keep putting all those qualifiers on, but it still helps, it still tells us something. And again, as we get the final specifics out there, we'll give a lot of detail on which test we're using and what it means and how we're going to move forward. All right, well, everybody, I'm going to finish where I started on a word, again, synonymous with our city, confidence. I feel a lot of confidence today myself, and I have been taking in so much information from day one. If I was not convinced we were on the right path, I would tell you. You'd be able to see it in my face. I am 100% confident that we can and will beat this disease. And I am even more confident because of what I've seen you do. There is an interesting line in life between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is when, in many cases, you aren't backing it up with the facts. In this case, I have confidence, and New Yorkers have confidence, because we're actually proving to ourselves and to the world that we can change the reality of what's happening in the city. And we can beat back this disease. It's happening literally every single day. And the indicators go over each day show it, and you can see it in the life of the city that things are getting better because people did the right thing. So there will be doubts along the way. There will probably be some setbacks even. But you don't have to wonder about New Yorkers. You don't have to wonder about our basic nature. You don't have to wonder about our toughness, our strength, our compassion for each other. You don't have to wonder about the ability of New Yorkers to do big things. It's playing out on the great stage right now. It's playing out before our very eyes. And I am confident we're moving in the right direction. And please, I know it's not easy. I know it's too long a battle, but we will get through it. Do what you're doing, do even more. Spread the word about the power of social distancing, of wearing those face coverings, of staying home to the maximum extent possible. It's working. Let's keep going, and that's the way back to normal. Thanks, everybody.